Congressional Budget Office projects the debt ceiling budget compromise negotiated by Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy and President Biden may only reduce the federal deficit by $1.5 trillion over the next 10 years. So does the legislation go far enough? Or is it the best that Speaker McCarthy could get from a divided Congress and the White House? Well, here to share his thoughts is Young Voices commentator, Associate Professor of Economics at Texas Tech University, Alexander Salter. Alex, thanks for being with us. So members of the Conservative Freedom Caucus are not happy with this. Some say McCarthy caved to the Democrats. They may try to remove him from the speakership. So what do you think? Good deal, bad deal, best deal possible?
I think it's simultaneously not good enough to fix our unsustainable fiscal problems and the best deal that we could get under the circumstances. Let's remember that the Republicans have only a very small minority in one chamber of Congress. We're going to need much more ambitious legislation to actually fix U.S. federal government finances, but we can't get that until we have Republicans in control of the House and the Senate and the White House. Given the circumstances, I think that this is actually a pretty good arrangement. Is it revolutionary? No. Is it better than the alternative? Yes. I think that in this case, it makes perfect sense to take what we can get, depart the field, and call it a win.
Well, it seems like it's slowing the spending, but it does kick the can down the road. Seems like all the tough budget cutting decisions will be left to the next Congress and the president elected in 2024. So how dangerous is that, kicking the can down the road?
It hasn't worked very well in the past, has it? Let's not forget that the last time that Republicans had undivided control over government in fiscal year 2018 and fiscal year 2019, they upped spending even larger than the final years of President Obama's administration. So as much as Republicans like to talk a big game about fiscal sustainability, they don't seem to be able to deliver. Nonetheless, right now, based on where the parties are, I think that undivided Republican control is our last best hope for serious reforms. Let's not forget that this budget deal only affected 25% of federal expenditures, non-defense discretionary. If we want to get serious about fiscal reforms, there's no getting around it. We have to tackle Social Security. We have to tackle Medicare and Medicaid. We have to tackle veterans benefits. We have to get on top of these liabilities that are spiraling out of control. There's no chance that it's going to happen with this Congress and with this president. I'm hopeful that in 2025, things will look a little bit better, but we're going to have to buck the trend and get Republicans that are actually committed to paying our budgets.
Alex, what do you think this agreement means for business and our economy? Already manufacturers are praising it. Why are they praising it?
There's a good amount of stability coming out of this. We understand what's going to happen to the federal budget over the next couple of years. When you factor in the fact that expenditures on non-defense discretionary are staying flat this fiscal year, a 1% increase next year, when you factor in inflation, that actually means that Uncle Sam will actually be consuming fewer actual resources, leaving more resources in the hands of the productive private sector, where people have an incentive to put that wealth to use, create jobs, create goods and services. So I think the business community likes that. Now, of course, we also have to worry, regardless about what's happening with inflation or not, what is happening to the public sector's overall share of consumption? Is the public sector getting bigger, smaller, or staying the same relative to the private sector? So long as we get this deal in place and we also have modest economic growth, I think the next 2 years are looking pretty good. I think that this is a step in the right direction. I think this sets the stage for more ambitious reforms in 2025 if everyone involved plays their political cards right. Of course, we also need to consider the possibility that the Republican Party will once again snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory by nominating, frankly, subpar candidates, as they did in the last electoral cycle. And that now has fiscal consequences in terms of being able to actually write and strike deals.
What do you see happening this summer and by the end of this year? Lower inflation, but more people working, higher interest rates, recession? What do you see happening?
I think the most likely outcome over the next couple of months is that we are not going to see a recession. Let's keep in mind, a recession is a cyclical phenomenon. What that means is you would expect markets to dip and then come back up. If markets get hurt right now, it's because we're currently suffering under a regulatory burden that makes the economy permanently less capable of turning inputs into outputs, producing jobs, producing goods and services. So in order to fix that, we need to get the regulatory barriers out of the way. Now, the permitting reform in the energy sector is promising. That actually might be able to do some of that. But I think that if we want to get back to historic rates of economic growth in this country, again, we need a broad-based reform that not only gets our finances under control so we stop siphoning away resources from the productive sector, but we also need a widespread reform of administrative law. We need to streamline regulations. We need to put Congress back in charge. We need to make sure the business community understands that irrational, capricious rules are not going to be written ad hoc by regulatory agencies that have no accountability to the people. That should be the long-term goal.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Young Voices commentator, Texas Tech University Associate Professor of Economics, Alexander Salter. Thank you, Alex, for taking the time to set us straight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.